思い出せ宮廷魔導士だった頃の感覚を
Well, we've gone through half of the year and the current anime season's in full throttle with all those popular sequels and a lot of sleeper hits. In the midst of feeling the hype from the current season's hits, I think it's also an apt time to give out Volume 4 of Underappreciated Anime. You seem to like those lists a lot and I'm more than happy to give you what you want, so here we are. Besides, there are just so many anime per season that if I'm going to have to introduce all of the less popular or underappreciated ones in my opinion, I'd be here all day. Well, it's about time we get the ball rolling, right? The lazy but cool teacher trope just doesn't seem to go out of flavor, does it? It's not as popular, but it still comes out every now and then in the form of anime like our starter for this list, Akashic Records of Bastard Magic Instructor. Lazy and seemingly incompetent, Glenn Radars won't strike anyone as teacher material, much less an instructor at the prestigious Alzano Imperial Magic Academy. Let's say he has a bit of a rocky start with his two students, Sistine and Rumia. However, as someone recommended and thrust into the position by Mage Extraordinaire Celica, there's surely more to this teacher than first meets the eye. Beneath the lazy facade is one of the coolest and most awesome teachers these girls can ever hope to learn from. One of the last of those Magic Academy light novels adaptations, Akashic Records still manages to impress. The first few episodes are really amazing for its genre, and I'd really recommend it even to someone not too fond of the whole magic high school harem thing. I just love the character dynamics shown in our main trio here, and while the show does fall into the pitfall of rushed adaptations and cut content in its latter half, I still find the show an underappreciated gem that a lot of people pass on because of its genre. Before we continue, I'd like you to turn your attention to this video sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Seriously, this thing legit brings back memories of the good old childhood days when high fantasy ruled, and now you can take the experience with you. Use my links below to download Raid yourself to your mobile phone or PC while I tell you more. Raid Shadow Legends is an amazing game that features a war-torn land and tension-filled battles among the 16 factions that the game has to offer. I'm personally a sucker for elves, so I immediately gun for the high elves, but I'm sure that whatever your tastes are, Raid will have something for you. Personally, my favorite champion is Elaine. She's one of the first champions you can get, but just look at her character design. Isn't she a perfect waifu material or what? Tyrell, who's an epic champion who's known for his defensive abilities, is also a great champion to have in your squad, especially if you see all of these reviews from other players. And if you start playing today, you can try a load of new updates that are now in-game. Among them are champion fragments that you can use to summon specific awesome champions, with special events running all the time. Also, the developers just added a new bazaar where you can load up on high-value items with the gold bars you win in Tag Arena. And finally, from now on, the daily login rewards have been extended up to 270 days, with free champions available just for logging in. By simply joining the game now and going to the link in the description box, you'll get 200k silver and a free grinner. Take a look at this amazing champion that you can get for absolutely no cost at all. Yes, completely free. For your extra rewards, you can find them in this inbox for the next 30 days. Well, what are you waiting for? Come and join the hottest video game craze in town now. In the 9th spot is one of the many products of the Moe boom in the 2010s, Sound of the Sky. Inspired by a trumpeter's rendition of Amazing Grace, Ganata Sorami decides to join the 1121st Platoon of the Helvetian Army. There, she gets acquainted with her squad, who train her to be a bugler. The series follows Ganata as she learns more about music and the world around her, all the while getting closer to her platoon and stopping a conspiracy that threatens to put the world at the brink of war once again. First impressions can often be wrong, and I think that's what doomed Sound of the Sky in terms of the popularity department. Honestly speaking though, I wouldn't be surprised if you passed the show off as K-On! But in the army, given the context at which it was released. However, the two shows do differ in substantial ways, and I think that those who continued on would have gotten themselves through a dramatic tale of hope and character growth. While it's nothing too special, given how many great anime there are out there, Sound of the Sky is still an anime that's got a lot more going for it than its popularity and first impressions may suggest. Tokyo Magnitude 8.0 finds itself at, ironically, the 8th spot on the list. Disaster plots are a dime a dozen, but none really strikes as close to home to Japan as disaster stories about earthquakes. With the country going through earthquakes like nothing, people say that it would only be a matter of time before a mega quake comes and ravages the country. Such a horrible reality is brought to light in Tokyo Magnitude 8.0. Tokyo Magnitude 8.0 follows siblings Mirai and Yuki as they find themselves caught in the devastating quake that leaves them in no man's land in Odaiba. Luckily, they run into Mari, and with her help, the siblings look to return to their home through a city brought to its knees. Tokyo Magnitude 8.0 is probably one of the most gripping dramas that I've ever watched. It's a story that takes a chilling premonition and lets us experience it through human eyes, something that's rare to come by these days. However, past the sadness brought about by the realism of the whole thing, there's an endearing story of hope and overcoming despair. Next, 7th on the list is To Be a Hero. When I say that anything goes for anime, I'm mainly talking about wild premises like this one. Uncle, a handsome and perverted toilet designer, gets sucked into a toilet and gets isekai'd? Nope. Instead, he gets powers and gets tasked to be the defender of Earth. Only now, he's become fat and ugly, looking nowhere like a typical hero, to the point that even his own daughter casts him out of his home. Now left with nowhere to call home, he joins up with his fellow pervert Yamada as they go on their dirty conquest of saving the Earth and getting Uncle back together with his daughter. While I'd say that To Be a Hero is underappreciated, I say so with full knowledge of why it happened. Right off the bat, To Be a Hero is not a show for everyone. A lot of people just don't take too well to the dirty humour, the slapstick, and the characters who can admittedly be off-putting at times. Still, I'd think that if you're up for some craziness and audaciousness that only anime can provide, you can give To Be a Hero a shot. At 11 episodes each season, the whole thing is just right around the length of a movie anyway, and it surprisingly has some really touching moments and lessons about parental bonding.
もっとよく面見せろ。
化け物。
お前、俺と一緒に来るか？
Japanese movies tend to deal a lot with mysticism and the parallel realms. It's something that has more or less been codified in a lot of Japanese anime and films. In The Boy and the Beast, we have more of that, and we see the story through the lens of Ren. Left with no one to call family, he runs off to the unforgiving streets of Shibuya, where he stumbles into Kumatetsu. Kumatetsu, as you can see, is a resident of the monster realm in this movie who quickly takes an interest in the lost boy. Aiming to use this boy to prove his point and become the successor to the lord of his world, Kumatetsu takes the boy in as his apprentice, while Ren begins his search for a home that he never had. Perhaps there's more tying the two together than their partnership born out of need. I really wonder why this movie didn't make that much of a splash. I think it's because it's not too artistic like a Shinkai film, and its setting does seem quite ordinary. Nevertheless, I did have some fun watching this, and I think that the story really holds up. It's short for this type of film that deals with student-teacher relationships, but it does get the job done. I had no regrets watching this, and I think it deserves more credit than people give it. Ever felt like you're just floating around in life, hopping from one fleeting job to another without finding purpose in life? Then maybe this show is the one for you. Golden Boy stars Kintaro, who rides all over Japan, hopping from one job to another. The thing is, the main draw of the jobs and the travelling for this pervy university dropout is the women. How fitting. His adventures take him on a wild journey through different experiences, all while coming into contact with women of all types along the way. Despite often leaving a bad first impression, he always comes out victorious, having won new experiences and learning various lessons while leaving those same women behind. Who knows how his conquest will end? You don't hear this show discussed often, but I think it's a winner. Golden Boy surprised me because, to be frank, it pretty much has no plot. No overarching goal, no blanket plot to keep the story going, just episodic misadventures featuring a charming dropout and lots of comedic ecchi. Yet, it still drew out a lot of laughs for me. It should also be able to do the same for you if you have that sort of sense of humour. Perhaps you're raring to find that perverted comedy to pass the time, and I'd say Golden Boy could be just the show for you. how-to shows are somewhat common enough in anime, and they do an awesome job at giving us glimpses of the industry. Among those, I think one of the best is Shirobako, our number 4 entry. We all make those high school promises with our friends and whatnot, and for our 5 main characters, theirs took the form of pursuing careers in animation and one day producing their own mainstream anime. Years later, such a dream is only feasible for 2 out of 5 of them. While Aoi and Emma seem to be doing pretty well for themselves, the other 3 are stuck with jobs or attempts at jobs that seem to be going nowhere. However, with enough perseverance, luck, and understanding on the workings of the industry, surely that pipe dream of one day making an anime is still possible for the 5 of them, right? Shirobako takes you on a journey through the ins and outs of the anime industry, through the struggles of aspiring youth wanting to break in and make it big. It presents itself to be a light-hearted show, but a lot of its content hits deep and exposes the harsh realities of the fabled industry that we all, as fans, adore and revere. In a vacuum, I'd say that Shirobako is not that underappreciated. People still look back at it fondly, and it has a decent fan base to boot. However, for how great the show is and how it stands out amongst its peers in the genre, it definitely deserves a bit more recognition. Now, Memories is a classic anime film, or rather a series of film, each dealing with different topics. The first one is a sci-fi mystery, while the second one is more of a comedy, and the third and final one is more of a bleak social commentary of sorts. I can see why Memories didn't become popular. There's a lack of an overarching plot that ties the movies together, and the title Memories really only fits the first one in the bunch. However, I'd give this movie some merits in how it showcased some of the best art and animation in anime cinema in its time. Surprisingly, the movie still holds up in the presentation department too. The atmosphere really hit the themes of the short films in the anthology well, and I think that overall Memories is a hidden gem that you'd mostly watch for the actual art and atmosphere than the characters. I wouldn't go ahead and say this is a film that was ahead of its time and all of that, but I think that it's still a film left behind by time that still deserves to be appreciated that little bit more. The second place on the list is from the legendary Satoshi Kon himself, Paranoia Agent. Musashino finds itself terrorized by a being called Shonen Bat. With his signature baseball bat, he makes his move at night and beats people down. As Shonen Bat claims more victims, detectives begin to investigate the case. What seems to be a typical detective story takes a huge turn into the surreal, just like the typical Satoshi Kon works. Paranoia Agent is really scary in its own way because of the way it plays with our perceptions. There's nothing more capable of conjuring the scariest things behind our own mind, as they say, and this show is a testament to that. Given Satoshi Kon's impressive resume, I'm not surprised to find Paranoia Agent being overshadowed by some of his bigger works. Nonetheless, a number of people find Paranoia Agent an amazing anime, and its relative lack of popularity just doesn't do it justice. The show is genius, and you should definitely try it out.
Sakura はどうしてお前なんかと。
なんか答えなさいよ。
君は本当に死ぬの？
死ぬよ。
Topping our 4th edition of Underappreciated Anime is I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. No, the movie isn't as morbid as the title suggests. In fact, it's the farthest thing from a horror or gory anime like the title does suggest. The title actually stems from Sakura. This popular and bubbly girl confides in her classmate, our protagonist, Haruki Shiga, about a pancreatic disease and the limited time that she has left. Despite being opposites of one another, the two classmates eventually start bonding, causing our detached protagonist to slowly open his heart as he slowly discovers the true meaning of life. With a synopsis like that, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to pass off I Want to Eat Your Pancreas as a predictable, character-driven anime movie that would serve as a passable tearjerker. And for the most part of it, it is predictable, but I firmly believe that being cliche and predictable isn't a weakness as long as the execution makes up for it, and boy does it make up for it in this movie. Overall, I think it's an amazing movie that holds up to the likes of some other tearjerker movies. It never rose to mainstream popularity status like those titles, but it more than deserves it. How about making it happen? If you're looking for more feels and anime movies that will surely tug your heartstrings, I Want to Eat Your Pancreas is here for you. As we wrap things up, What do you think about those anime? Please leave a comment below on which anime you think is underappreciated. I'd love to hear your opinion on how this list turned out. As usual, likes and subscribes are very much appreciated, and we'll be bringing you some more awesome content. Don't forget to check out our sponsors game, Raid Shadow Legends. Links in the description. For now, that's got to do it, and I hope to see you next time on VinnyTube.